Alright, well, welcome back. So, today we're going to be working on the bow design of Crossbow. And what we're going to need here for this section, because I will be having to do this in two different sections. So you can see I got a bunch of different particles. I mean, these are cut, these are not. So what we're going to need now, you're going to need a sharp knife, measuring tool, hopefully like a long stick or something to make longer cuts that are straight. And these are balsa wood strips. The ones I have grabbed are 3/32, which is the thickness, by 4 inches wide by 36 inches long. The one on my other bow was actually a little bit thicker than this. It's probably two of these put together actually of how thick it was. But for this, I've gone a little cheaper, well actually it's about the same price, but thinner, I should say. A little thinner, a little more lightweight. The other one that I put together on my original bow was just jumbled together inside just to make it work. And without tearing into my old bow, figuring out how that is, I've kind of done the math, drew some drawings up, did some sample cuts with this, and I figured out a different way which would be a little easier, a little bit better to work with. So, first things first, you have two different pieces. Each one's going to do their own individual parts. Now, I highly recommend removing the stickers. Part of it will be inside the bow, you'll never see it, but part of it will be outside the bow, making the bow itself, and you don't want the sticker there because, I mean, that doesn't work. So, always peel these off carefully, especially you got the thinner boards, because you don't want to gouge and whatnot into it. So remove those. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to set that one aside, and we're going to start with our first strip here. And what we will do with this piece, put those to the side. I was hoping I was a little bit more organized than this. Hopes and dreams. Alright. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this one and we're going to cut it directly in half, right down the center. Now being 4 inches wide, it's a 2-inch cut. So what we'll do is we will measure, put a little mark here at 2 inches. And then another mark here at this end at 2 inches. Then I will use my other board, line those two marks up, and slice it right down the center. Now if you're using your other board, do be careful with your blade. You will have a tendency to slice over too far one direction or the other. And the last thing you want to do is cut where you don't want to cut. Like that. Also, make sure you're holding on to your board so it doesn't slide. Now, a slight little nick off, not too noticeable. At all. These are all minor things. What you want is you want the bulk of it. Alright. So the next thing we're going to do on these two pieces is we are going to measure. I use this side because this side's would be outside, and this side would be inside. So since I slightly messed up there, that's okay. What we're going to do is measure 10 inches up. Here. And we're going to cut this 10-inch little strip off. Now I have my other little measuring tool. It's a little easier. Not as long as the other one, but a little easier. That's that one. Now, in case you don't know, I always do 2 marks, one at both ends. That way you can line up your measuring tool right there, and you can get a more straight piece. Okay, so those 2 are going to be set aside for now. Now these other 2 pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to cut them down vertically in half again. This is what's going to give us our a little piece right here that fits inside, connected to the rest of this chamber that we're building, that will initiate the movement to open and close. There's our pieces for that one. Now let's jump over to our piece number 2. Now this one's actually slightly easier. What we're going to do is you want to measure right in half at 18 inches. So it'll go on at 18 inches, which gives us right in half of this board. What we're going to do, we have our 2 pieces, we're going to take off 1-inch strip along this side here. And I'm using this because this is 1 inch here. So you might have to take a moment to measure. So that's our second piece. Now that one's fairly easy to do. So now our next step here, what we want to do is measure one of these. I'd keep this just for scrap. And that might come in handy a little bit later. It might just be left over. What we're going to do is measure out 2 3-inch pieces from this little guy here. And what this does, these pieces are actually this holding block right here that secures to this, and also the hinge inside. Okay. Now we have our two pieces, and what we're going to do next is cut these two in half again. And this is now 3 inches, and so of course our measurements will be at 1.5. And on top of that, let's get this mark here first. So for right now, just mark it where you're going to cut it. Now one end we're going to want to keep straight. That part's at the beginning of the bow. This part, we're going to want to make it a little bowed piece. And just do like a simple kind of rounded drawing. You don't want a straight jab like that. You want it to be a little bit more rounded in the corner. So something like that, like a giant bow. But of course hers is a double bowed. So this is where our double bow comes into play. Just like that. And make sure you keep that together. And might as well just do this one too. I've actually bought enough material here to do 2 different bows, since in my other video, I had the one that I showed how to make it, and then the other one that was already done. So I figured I'll have this just in case I mess up, or in case I do it right and kind of know what I'm talking about. That's something. You don't want a straight jag like that. So just trim it to where it's nice. I mean, if you have a little bit of sandpaper, you want to sand it, you can. I'm not saying it's really necessary, but because it's just going to get roughed up anyways. So those are our 2 pieces for that one. Now if we go back to over here, this is where it's going to get a little tricky on these. Okay. So what we're going to do on this one is we're going to make 2 measurements. One measurement from here down, and what we're going to measure at is 3.5 inches. And that's crooked as hell. And half of that, which is 1 3/4 inch. That's how bad I am with measurements. I gotta actually have one that has the measurements on it. And that one, of course, has duct tape, so alright. 1 3/4 inches. Which is half of the half. next thing we're going to do is measure straight down the middle. That seems a little smaller. We're going to measure straight down the middle. Okay. Now this is the kind of tricky part. So what we're going to do is line up this corner with that bottom line and in the middle. And mark here with that top little peak. And you want to do that with both sides. And take it back. Half here, right in the center piece. You can just kind of eyeball it. This is not completely crucial, but it kind of is. So that corner there and that corner here, you want to complete this little line right there. And this part is what we're going to do. We're going to cut this off. And do it the same way here. So there's that little strap. So now, when these two come together, these 2 points here should be at the bottom line, and of course these 2 points here should match up with that corner. So once that's verified, we take that off, and now we're going to cut this little piece off right here. And that's getting old. Alright. So now as long as those line up, that line that you've made in those corners, that's what we're going to do. That part right there is what we're going to glue down eventually. We're not going to do it yet, because otherwise it won't fit into anything. And then of course this part here will be the top of this. That will help secure this down. What we're going to do is take this and repeat it with the other side. So now, what we're going to do is work on these 2 pieces. This will be the last part of this section of this video. And what we're going to do is take these and soak them in water for about 1 minute to 3 minutes. They don't really need long. They're very cheap wood. You want to do that. And then also have a used can. This is like an old can of peaches. You can use any can, really. I would prefer empty. I use one of these bigger cans here, which is also what I've used for this end right here. And it just comes in handy pretty well when we're working with the high heat gun. And you can either use a hair dryer or a heat gun. I have a heat gun. So let me go grab my 2 pieces that I'll be working on, because I've had those soaking in water for right now. And I will be right back really quick. Alright, so here's my 2 soaked pieces. Now what you're going to do is you're going to try and make the bow effect. You don't want too big of a bow. Mine only come off about 1 inch from the box itself. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to dry the wood, and of course any wood that gets wet and is dried becomes warped. And the can is there to kind of help with the arch edge. You don't want it too much. If you need to, you can either use like a flat surface here to determine your bow bentness, or you can have the little box that comes over. So really, you don't really want to get too close to burning yourself. I usually have my knee here to kind of hold that bend, and then just bigger. And the reason why I use a bigger container is it arches it up a little higher away from any surface that might get burned, especially if you're using a heat gun. You don't want to catch anything on fire. What I love about the heat gun, it dries really fast, but if you happen to get like really close to your wood and it starts to burn it, it only adds to the effect of everything being old and aged. Now I'm just pushing this light pressure on here. You don't want too much pressure because you might actually break it or bend it farther than you need to. So I get a little close there. That's okay. I will get close just to add the burn marks in it. This is pretty nice, especially if you add when we add the color to it. Whew. See, it's starting to get pretty dried up. Is to make sure you're drawing in the right way. So that's why you go off the arch, and that's how it's going to be on the gun, on the bow. That's why you always want to make sure you know what way you're going. Because if not, you'll have your bow bend in the wrong way. I haven't done that yet, but I think the easiest way to repair that, if that ever happened, just re-soak it and slowly bend it the other way. Now at this moment, don't worry too much if the wood are not similar in their boat effect, because as we start to work with it in the next coming steps, it will begin to work itself in. So there's our two bows, and oddly enough, see, they come pretty close together in their shape, and they'll still be rigid because they're the thin balls of wood, but now they'll more hold that boat effect. So just repeat it with the other side, and when I continue on with the next section, we'll be working on the rest of this, the first part, and getting them inside the box and ready to go. So, till then, thanks for watching.